Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 through 17. It said about 3 months after the Hebrews had left Egypt, they are in the wilderness of Sinai, and they are camping near Mount Sinai. Moses goes up to meet with God on the mountain. And when Moses comes down to the people, he said to them, God spoke all these words. I am God, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of a life of slavery. No other gods, only me. No carved gods of any size, shape, or form of anything whatever, whether of things that fly or walk or swim. Don't bow down to them and don't serve them, because I am God, your God, and I'm a most jealous God, punishing the children for any sins their parents pass on to them, to the third, and yes, even to the fourth generation of those who hate me. But I'm unswervingly loyal to the thousands who love me and keep my commandments. No using the name of God, your God, in curses or silly banter. God won't put up with the irreverent use of his name. Observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Work 6 days and do everything you need to do. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to God, your God. Don't do any work, not you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your servant, nor your maid, nor your animals, not even the foreign guest visiting in your town. For in 6 days God made heaven, earth, and sea, and everything in them. He rested on the seventh day. Therefore God blessed the Sabbath day. He set it apart as a holy day. Honor your father and mother, so that you'll live a long time in the land that God, your God, is giving you. No murder, no adultery, no stealing, no lies about your neighbor, no lusting after your neighbor's house, or wife, or servant, or maid, or ox, or donkey. Don't set your heart on anything that is your neighbor's. This is the wisdom of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Some time ago, I was driving along, going 5 miles over the speed limit. Wasn't on my cell phone, wasn't distracted anyway, just listening to the radio, and I heard this report about people forgetting the 10 Commandments. Can you believe it? What will happen to America? The worst part of it, it wasn't just lay people, it was clergy who were forgetting, so I immediately started to count. I got them all, but I had a little trouble remembering do not bear false witness. I thought about lying about it, but some on the radio program were saying that we ought to post the 10 Commandments. I'm sure you've heard this before, put them in all sorts of government buildings and in every hamlet in America, which raises constitutional questions, which invites culture wars. So we don't want that, do we? My indifference to posting the 10 Commandments is not about the Constitution. It's not really about the content of the commandments. It's because I don't trust posting very much. When you post something, it can be impulsive, declarative, and it often encourages simplistic thinking. The 10 Commandments are then read at face value, legalistically, as if to say, just follow these rules to the letter and everything will be fine. I don't believe there are a lot of things that can be read at face value. There is nuance upon nuance woven into metaphor and allusion in most things. Like most things, Scripture is layered and complex and mysterious and needs to be studied, and sometimes it needs to be deconstructed, to be reconstructed, or remembered with a hyphen. So, today we will be remembering the 10 Commandments, and in order to do so, I've brought a guest, Harry Christian, a well-respected church person, not to be confused with Hare Krishnas who used to hang out in the airports. We know how old you are if you remember that. Harry is a good Protestant Christian, never be caught in a white robe, doesn't go to the airport, especially during COVID, He really doesn't need to go anywhere to know the truth. The truth is right in front of us in the Ten Commandments. He is devoted to them. He remembers first learning the Ten Commandments in Sunday school at first UMC from Miss Finster, who always remembered his birthday. He follows them as best he can, and he believes that if others would, the troubles of our society might go away. So he wants them posted. Okay. Let me say that I like Harry. I think he has best intentions in the world, but I do wonder if he understands the depth of the Ten Commandments. So we're going to go through each one this morning, 1 through 10. Have you all counted in your brains? Did you get them all? I know you were doing that. First one, you shall have no other gods before me. Henry's response is immediate to this commandment. He says, of course, we all know that there's only one God and God is God. There's nothing much more to that. You won't find crystals in his closet. And when his wife goes on about the horoscope in the newspaper, he gets kind of cross. It's a good thing that God saw fit to make man the head of the household so he can set her straight on that. Lucky for you, Harry, it just so happens that in our Bible study on Wednesday mornings, we're reading Colossians where it says, and we're going to be reading this Wednesday, wives, be subject to your husbands as is fit in the Lord. 9:30 a.m., bring Esther. Might be fun. Setting things straight. That's what the commandments are about, huh, Harry? Harry feels that things used to be more straight than they are today. In cities, streets were straight and there were blocks and you could count them. It made sense. Now they're all complex and go crooked everywhere. Education, romance, economy were all more straightforward. People were straight, for goodness sakes. So now food is also so unfamiliar. There are restaurants all over the place that I don't understand. There's even a restaurant I saw that's called What the Pho? That's not good. But that gets on to number 3, so we'll get there. Indeed, Harry, you are sincere, wanting all things to be straight, but the reality is some things aren't straight. Relativity tells us that light bends, and if light bends, maybe we should too. Having no other gods is not primarily about worshiping gods like Krishna, Ramta, Isis, Vishnu, Marduk. It means believing that Yahweh, the God of Israel, is the only God. And then it means to make God our ultimate concern. And that means with regard to all things, our ultimate concern more than political party, nation, market, finance, anything. And then it means that we allow God to guide us through our actions and thoughts regarding all of these things too. Take another look, Harry. There's more here than you would like to believe. We must look deeper. Number 2, do not make idols. Oh, this one Harry gets right away because he never has made a golden calf. Where would he get the gold? He chuckles at this, but then he quickly frowns because he then remembers seeing the golden Donald Trump at the CPAC convention. The annual meeting of conservative political politicians held in Orlando this past week. Harry has been a lifelong Republican until Donald Trump came along. He's always assumed that Republicans read the Bible, but now he kind of wonders. Harry understands that making a 6-foot golden Donald Trump is very similar to making a golden calf. We're not supposed to worship things, he starts. He should have stopped right there. And then he continued, like the Roman Catholics. Roman Catholics? What are you talking about? Because they worship stuff too. What? Mary, the saints, Harry, I'd like to read you something that may help us in this regard and may help us to look a little more deeply by a woman named Elaine Prevelet. She's from the Order of the Sisters of Loretto. That's Catholic, Harry. She says, power, particularly perceived as domination, control, is, I believe, our cultural idol. It is for us a cultural pathology, an obsession manifested in a variety of symptoms. I think of all the emphasis that at the national level that our country should be number one as a world power, then force always in the background in case that the status is threatened. I think of the exploitation we perpetuate in order to keep the standard of living of some that ensures that the power will be maintained. I observe how fearful and resentful we are losing control of our lives in suffering and sickness, and how we regard dying as the final enemy to be delayed or held at bay by any means possible. I think of how that will to power is fed by greed, how we have been from the earliest childhood carefully taught about the importance of acquiring, getting, competing, and winning. I think of how addicted we are to consuming and how we unquestioningly connect better with more and bigger and new with progress. We are kept enthralled by the illusion that we are, can be, or should be in control of our lives. The idol requires that we devote our time and energy, our hearts and souls to keep this illusion alive, and we do. This was written decades ago, long before Donald Trump. Idols are not primarily or simply physical things. They are spiritual things. The physical things often represent the spiritual thing. The golden Donald Trump represents the actual Donald Trump, who is an idol because he seeks power. Not only that, he's already broken the first commandment by having another God other than Yahweh. And of course, that is himself. It isn't merely the person of Donald Trump that is the idol. It is, as Elaine Prevelet says, the power that is sought, demonstrated in Make America Great Again, or Make America First, or in consuming, acquiring, competing, and always, always winning. All of these, Harry, are idols. Number 3, don't take the Lord's name in vain. This last one was real complicated for Harry, but he's sure that this one is straightforward. He's a little bit worried about it because when he gets really angry, he says, damn it. But he never says, God damn it, so he's cool. Yes, you are, Harry. You're very cool. There's plenty of foul language going around today. However, there's more to taking the Lord's name in vain than swearing. Harry frowns. We abuse the Lord's name anytime we use it in vain, which means when we call upon the Lord for our own purposes, when we speak of the glory of God, but deep down we are glorifying ourselves. It was for the glory of God that the Europeans colonized the New World, subjected it, abused it for their own purposes. It was for the glory of God that Pope Innocent III called the First Crusade. The Crusaders cried before battle, God wills it. But really, it was Innocent III that willed it. And as a result, so many innocents died. Sadly, one of them wasn't innocent himself. It's tricky business when we think about these things. We have to be careful whenever we say God, and to think about it and to be sure that when we say it, we're glorifying God and not ourselves, and not our nation. we should even think about what we mean when we say, God bless America. 4, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. He's agonizing about this one. You know, he goes to church most Sundays, but if it's in season and the weather's good, he likes to go fishing. He gets out there and struggles because he always remembers the story about Jesus gathering the disciples and telling them that you will be fishers of men. And it is men, no matter what Esther's friend Sam says about it. That's what Harry thinks. Honoring the Sabbath goes deeper than face value also. It's more than going to church, although we must remember to go to church. Sabbath is about making time for God. Did you listen in there about all the things you're not supposed to do on the Sabbath, but you are supposed to do some other things, spiritual disciplines, prayer, reading, meditating, fasting, whatever that may be. And this can entail so many things. We don't have to limit it to what is in the Bible. I think gardening can be a spiritual discipline. For me, taking pictures, painting, running. Listen, Harry, when you go fishing, if all you can think about is all your troubles during the week and how much you really want to beat neighbor Willie good and getting more fish, it's not a Sabbath. But if you go out there and clear your mind and think of God, I'll give you that as a Sabbath. Second, there's one more about the Sabbath. According to biblical scholar Walter Brueggemann, keeping the Sabbath is a form of resistance. He says, in our contemporary context of the rat race of anxiety, the celebration of Sabbath is an act of both resistance and alternative. It is resistance because it is visible resistance that our lives are not defined by the production and consumption of commodity goods. In our anxious society, to cite a case in point, one of the great seductions of Pharaoh is the fact that soccer practice invades the rest of the day. Families, largely contained by market ideology, think of themselves as helpless before the requirements of such a commitment. In this context, it requires enormous communal resolve to resist the demand. Anybody have a child who had a soccer game on Sunday? Harry winces, recalling the time he skipped church to go to his granddaughter's soccer game. Next, please. Next. Honor your father and your mother. Harry's relieved now. He had really good parents, and he loved them, and he obeyed them for the most part, except for the time he went over to Becky's, telling them that he was really going to the library. Please don't tell Esther, because she doesn't know about Becky. Harry was blessed by his parents, but not everybody is. We have to be careful when we read at face value, because some people's parents abused them and have trouble honoring them. At its core, this is about respecting all that comes before us if it is worthy, recognizing that we are who we are, not simply by our own choices, but by all the witnesses, the cloud of witnesses that have come before us, respecting the saints and those who nurtured us when we were young. It means caring for the elderly, respecting tradition, understanding that we are not the center of the universe. And finally, it means valuing dependence and interdependence, at least as much as independence. Number 5, no, this is number 6. Do not kill. Oh, Harry is a little bit unsure. He's really sure about this one, because he's never, ever killed anybody. And he thinks if anybody does that, they should be taken out and shot. The trouble is, if things are interdependent, it means that the things we do affect the world, even at large distances away. Where did you get those Air Jordans? Where were they made? In a sweatshop in Bangladesh? And what about the coffee prices and how they affect the social economy in Central America? How do the economics there that support the creation of gangs not be about killing? Martin Luther King Jr. once said, if you touch a banana, you touch the world. That means that if things are all interconnected, so can killing be. Number 7, do not commit adultery. Harry has been a little annoyed up to now, hearing that all these complicated commandments, this one is not complicated at all. Yes, Harry is pretty straightforward. It's admirable, Harry, that you have never had sex with someone other than Esther. At the same time, we have to recall that Jesus interpreted this commandment. One can find it in the Sermon on the Mount or the Sermon on the Plain, where it says, you have heard it said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery in his or her heart. Ooh, hurry. Harry goes over to the bookshelf, gets his Bible, looks it up, and there it is. Harry's never thought about Jesus interpreting his Bible, the Hebrew Bible. He's really confused now. Things used to be so much more simple. Yes, we have to remember that in the background of everything Jesus taught was the Hebrew Bible. And Jesus interpreted his tradition using the lens of love and the lens of one's heart. This isn't simply about whether one has sex with someone who isn't one's spouse. It's about where our hearts are in regard to all our relationships. This is particularly important with regard to women. Number 8, do not steal. Harry thinks, number 8, soon this will be over. He was so excited when it started, confident in his faithfulness, and now he has to take pause where it says, do not steal, because he remembered when he was 11 years old, he shoplifted. What is in the question is, as with killing and stealing, this must be viewed in a deeper way, holistically and communally. Seeing things as interdependent. When the rich continue to get richer and the poor to become poorer, there's a heck of a lot of stealing going on. Number 9, do not bear false witness. Living in the time of the big lie, this commandment seems trivialized. In a world of having my own truth and alternative facts, Donald Trump, the bearer of false witness in chief, has done a disservice to future generations simply by lying for his benefit, suggesting that that's all right. According to the Washington Post, Trump lied 30,573 times during his presidency. And according to US News, he lied around 76% of the time. In the words of a famous thinker, truth is like the sun. You can shut it out for a time, but it ain't going away. And that famous person was Elvis Presley. Yes, indeed. The greater danger with lying is when lying becomes so common that we become victim of lying to ourselves and not even realizing it. If you ever do this, Harry, I suggest counseling. And no, counseling is not just a Catholic thing. We're at number 10, do not covet. Harry winces a little on this one too because his neighbor Willie Good just bought a new boat. Oh no, it isn't fair. Harry works just as hard as Willie does. Just because Willie's in management and he makes more money and he gets to afford a boat, now surely he's going to be catching more fish than me. That's all right, Harry. It isn't fair. Life isn't about getting what you want. This commandment is actually about not getting what we want. It's about not wanting material things. It's about being satisfied with what we have and being grateful for what we have. It's about the ills of competition and winning. Harry, after sharing all of these with you, I have to remind you of one more thing. There is forgiveness and grace. It is precisely because there is forgiveness and grace that we can have the courage to look at the 10 Commandments more deeply and seriously. So, go ahead, Harry, post them. Actually, why don't you post them on Facebook? There you go. We like posting in America today, don't we? We like to post our opinions and our lies, oftentimes just to get some attention. Sometimes during the pandemic, just to get some connection. And that's good. But sometimes we like to present a self in social media that really isn't our true self. It's merely what we want the public to see. We post this self often enough, we may lose touch with our hearts. The more we post, the less we look into ourselves. We Google everything in the world. But how long has it been since we Googled our souls? We live it in a post-it culture today. America says, I post, therefore I am. Parenthetically, does anybody hate post-it notes as much as I do? I can't stand those things. So, posting the 10 Commandments is much the same. It becomes like telling others what they should think or believe. It doesn't transform the heart. What Jesus was about was the heart. And that's where we need to post them. In closing, there's a wonderful passage from the Old Testament in Deuteronomy. Surely this commandment that I am commanding you today is not too hard for you, nor is it too far away. It is not in heaven that you should say, who will go up to heaven for us so that we may hear and observe it? Neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, who will cross the other side of the sea for us and get it for us so that we may hear it and observe it? The word is very near to you. It is in your mouth. It is in your heart so that you may observe it. Amen.